Thanks so much for joining. For those who are maybe new or haven't been to a SaaStr Sponsor Insider webinar before, we try and do these weekly. We took a little bit of a break after SaaStr Annual, which was our largest event this last year in September. But we're back and we've got a lot of events and sponsorships on the dock, a lot happening at SaaStr, in fact, just in 2023. So we wanted to share a bit of that with all of you. Some of you, it looks like, are already signed on, looking at the audience to sponsor SaaStr's 2023 events. I do see some new names, so welcome. We're going to try and give you a lay of the land. We're not going to go over everything. There's a lot going on at SaaStr into 2023. We're going to do kind of like a highlights. Probably keep it to hopefully 20 minutes or so. And since these are weekly and we are restarting these. Also, if there's anything you want to see on these going forward, let us know in the chat, drop in the comments. I know we're going to not make these all about SaaStr every week. We're going to try and, make them more of like workshop styles going forward. So if that's something you want to see, let us know. I'm also going to make Hoya, who's here, a panelist. Let's see if that worked. Okay, cool. So I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. As you may or may not know, we actually are celebrating 10 years of SaaStr this year. We did a big celebration at the SaaStr Annual in September. 2022 is kind of like the start of our 10-year anniversary. It's 10 years of SaaStr.com. It was like the 8th annual, I think, this year. So somewhat confusing sometimes for folks. But yeah, it's been 10 years of SaaStr. So that's pretty cool. There's a lot going on for us in that 10 years. A lot of expansion. We had a lot of events. We actually just had SaaStr Scale yesterday, which was a completely digital event. I think we had something crazy like 26,000 people watch the HubSpot video live on Twitter. So that was cool to see for the community. So we did a number of events this year. We did a few digital events, and then most notably our bigger events. We're back in person. So SaaStr Europa, which we had to skip last year, came back this year to Barcelona, Spain. It was great. I think there's about 2,500 people there, outside open air by the beach. It was a good one. Had SaaStr Annual in September. This was our biggest SaaStr Annual to date. So that's pretty notable going into next year, because we're already on track to surpass that. We do, sell tickets and invite attendees year round. So we're already tracking ahead for both Annual and Europa next year, which I think is a good positive indicator, maybe despite everything else going on in SaaS and the markets. People still ready to go to in-person events. So that's cool. And then we had Scale yesterday, which is our biggest digital event that we do every December. It's kind of like a nice year-end close, where we chat about scaling and the playbooks to 100 million and beyond. So that's a good one. And the replays are up if you missed them on our YouTube channel. Just wanted to give you guys a quick-ish overview of what'll be going on next year, because I think this has been touted maybe on SaaStr.com, but maybe not so much from a sponsorship perspective as of yet. We are adding our first SaaStr APAC event in 2023. We're actually going to do the first SaaStr APAC in 2020. What a great year we picked for that. So finally, 3 years later, we get to now do our SaaStr APAC, which we were planning on doing sooner, but better late than never for our first SaaStr APAC. So we are going to be in Singapore. It's going to be bustling. The island is great. It's been on my personal list for quite a time to go to Singapore. Just personally, hold on guys, I'm getting Poya in here too. It's been on my personal list to go to Singapore. It's been on SaaStr's list since 2020 to go to Singapore. We're excited to finally be able to do this. It takes a bit of coordination to do something of that international magnitude from Silicon Valley and where we are in SaaStr in San Francisco. So we're excited. It'll be our first ever SaaStr event in Asia Pacific. The response has been crazy. I'll let Poya chime in a second. It's from my inbox, even just the moment we said we're a go and we're going to be an APAC, the response has been insane. Everyone's very excited for this. People are coming from, across Asia Pacific. It's going to be a good one. It's at a beautiful location. It's right along the water. It's across from maybe the more well-known Marina Bay Sands. But it'll be more immersive because we can actually take over the full of the Fullerton Hotel, which we couldn't quite do at the Sands for 23 yet. So that'll be exciting because it'll basically be all SaaStr at the Fullerton. Poya, any thoughts on APAC?
Yeah, the biggest thing that I'm really looking forward to in Singapore, I remember the first time we did SaaStr Annual in this outdoor format, September 2021. Like people were just so excited to see each other, right, Amelia? And then
for sure.
we repeated it in Barcelona. It was like most people's first event post-pandemic. And that's kind of the vibes we were getting with Singapore. It's opened up. People are excited. They haven't had events in a couple of years. So it's always nice to be a part of those events. So if you're a sponsor, at the very least, we recommend you send 1 or 2 delegates to represent you. But we weren't going to have sponsorships, but the demand and the interest was so high that we're like, hey, let's create some opportunities for our amazing sponsors and partners to get in front of our community in APAC.
Which we'll talk about more in a bit. But that's a really good point about being back in person. Singapore kind of just more recently reopened. I think, the APAC has been a bit more strict and stringent on their restrictions and reopening rules and regulations. So it's nice that, they're finally opened and that we can host this next year because, the demand has been crazy. Crazy. We are going to do SaaStr Europa again next year because SaaStr Europa this year was a smash. I think it was, one of my favorite SaaStr events we've ever done. On the water, at the beach, with lots of love. But we did notice, everyone came from London.
Or UK in general.
Yeah, UK. Yeah, you're right. Sorry, UK, London. It's confusing now who's part of the EU anymore. But SaaStr Europa will be back. It's actually oddly going to be the first time we're doing it in London. It feels like we had a really small meetup, I think, back in 2012 or so. I don't know, a long time ago. So this will be our first official bigger SaaStr event in London. Let me tell you guys, the attendee demand has been crazy. I think because we're going to where the people are this time. We'll be at the Tobacco Dock. I think many of you who are maybe more familiar with London know it. It's right on the dock, on the Thames. It'll be the 4th SaaStr Europa, but first time in London. The docks are great. It's a really modular venue. It's got open air, so we're going to do the same thing that we kind of been doing at our recent SaaStr events, to Poya's point of opening up the venue and the space. We're going to have a big tent right on the dock side. It's going to be a ton of fun.
100%. The big thing to echo here, last year this time we only had one event we were really planning for. It was annual, right? We didn't know if we were going to do Europa. We didn't know if we were going to add anything else. This time around, we're doing 3 events, and there's no slowdown. We're doing in person. The reason I'm calling that out is a lot of people are pulling back or thinking about pulling back. And I think these are a great opportunity for you to maybe dip your toe without having to commit and do your own events, right? We have the distribution. Yeah. We get the community together. We're hearing a lot of enthusiasm for all of our events next year. So I think it's a great opportunity if you guys are thinking about partnering with us to do it sooner rather than later, because even though some people are pulling back, there's other brands that are doubling and tripling down next year.
Yeah. And again, we always do these ticket models every year for attendance and where we, kind of model out where we want to be, where we think we'll land. And our models are broken, not even that far into the attendance cycle.
Broken because we're doing good.
Exactly.
We're ahead. Not broken because of concerns. Broken because we're
no broken because there's demand. So in the best way possible, we've had a lot of attendee demand already for each of our events for 2023. So all of our events will be record-setting attendance for all of our events. We put some placeholders there. Our initial estimates, we'll probably even update those Jan 1, because again, we've already kind of surpassed these initial estimates of where we're going to be. So that's kind of the first half of the year in our international events. So 2 more events that are maybe a bit closer to home for some of you. SaaStr Annual 2023, we will be back next year. For those who might be newer or maybe didn't get the chance to attend this year, but are, have been considering it for a while, the SaaStr Annual is open air. It's a festival style. It's really big. It's really unlike anything else we do. It's a really massive event. And so we take over all of the San Mateo Fairgrounds out here in the Bay Area, because it is 40 acres and we can take over the whole thing. We can do it. We're going to do a giant hangar this next year of just like all networking and brain dates. I do this fun thing called the Cantina now, which is where people get to like hang out and work and network with one another. I know some folks, some attendees told me they never left the Cantina this last year. They just sat in there for 3 days, had a bunch of conversations, met a bunch of like founders and VPs of sales, and had some kombuchas and beers, and like that was their whole conference. They loved it. But it's really tons of fun. It's a big industry gathering. Our best content is usually from SaaStr Annual as well. So it is a lot, right? It's very tactical. It's 3 days. It's open air at least, so you do get some sunshine that kind of rejuvenates you. We do this thing called the Big Party every year, which has been escalating and EDM acts year for year. But yeah, boy, give me your thoughts on Annual, because you've been part of it for a long time too.
It's going to keep getting better and better each year. The nice part about Annual, people seem to like the outdoor festival style format, so we'll continue that. The only 2 things to highlight are the dates. So I know we were thinking about at some point doing the second week of September. We're doing the first week of September, mainly because we don't want to compete for resources with Dreamforce, who are, even though they haven't publicly announced it, they're thinking about doing it the second week. The reason I call that out, historically, we usually start on either Monday or Tuesday, but because this falls right after Labor Day, it's going to be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday next year. Yeah. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, that's a good point for planning purposes. Listen, a lot of folks too, outside of sponsorship, a lot of folks too use this as their team meetups. I think we'll probably see more of that coming into this year, if that is something you're planning to do. And I don't mean just for your teams. I mean, a lot of people did it for their internal teams, but they also did it with customers. We had a number of sponsors in 2022 have customer meetups on site, invite their customers, do a whole thing on site, and inviting their internal teams. We saw everything from like maybe everything short of a board meeting, but we saw a lot of VC meetings.
We had those. I heard about those.
Okay.
Offsite.
I was like, I saw a lot of customer advisory board meetings. I don't know. I didn't know if there was any
executive meetings.
Yeah.
Just bring your whole ecosystem, right? And if you plan on doing it, talk to us. We'll make it fruitful for you.
Yeah, that was what I was going to mention. Is like, if this is something that is, something in your wheelhouse where there are cuts, but to Boya's point, like you want to double down on something that you're going to do anyway. I'm sure we can figure out a way to make that come to fruition at SaaStr Annual, so that you can do multiple things at once. Kind of be efficient with the spend. I know it's kind of top of mind for folks. And then SaaStr Scale. Okay, so we just had this yesterday, hard to believe. Hopefully you guys get to see some of those sessions. If not, they'll be going out on our podcast and our YouTube and SaaStr.com. This is our now once a year digital event. It actually started as an in-person event because it was kind of a bridge between SaaStr Annual and SaaStr Europa for the Bay Area. But then, folks got kind of scattered and distributed, so we went to digital. This is our most popular digital event. We do it every year in December because it's a great way for our community to get, the tips that they need into the next year. And also on the sponsorship side, it's a great way to get some end of year lead gen and some creative juices going.
I see one question. It's for health and safety. And frankly, I like, no matter what me or Amelia or anyone comments on health and safety, it's just going to be a different world in 3 months, 6 months, 10 months, and each region's a little different. With that said, I would say that the biggest thing we're trying to prioritize as a team when it comes to health and safety is just ensuring that people that come in are not sick, which I think you guys want that. We want that. The community wants that. So that's how we're thinking about it. In terms of the specifics, I think we do a pretty good job of maintaining that health and safety bar high, but we frankly won't comment on anything specific usually until we're about 60 days out.
Yeah, and I would say even more so for like APAC even, right, which we're, sorry, let me go back, which we're working through the health and safety right now with, a number of folks. It's not just SaaStr internally deciding, okay, like what should we have the policies be to keep our attendance and our community safe. We do have a dedicated health and safety team since 2020 now, so almost 3 years now, folks who help us. And we do have agencies and sometimes government involvement, just depending on, the size. Think about SaaStr Annual, more than 10,000 people all at once. Like, we work with San Mateo County very, very closely on this, as well as, during 2021, it was more like government involvement there as well. Europa, right? London, I think it's an interesting case, because a lot of people are more vaxxed there than maybe our international community is, just given, the nature of how the NHS works, in London and in the UK specifically. Singapore, as I mentioned earlier, has been more strict and just kind of recently eased restrictions. So we're working through with them of like what those might look like. They'll still have some guidelines in Feb of 22, considering they still have some right now. You can, Google the entry requirements for Singapore, and there are some, there's not none. So, that is something to bear in mind, is there's not no requirements to go to Singapore if you're coming from the States, or even if you're coming from places like, New Zealand or India or New York that are maybe closer to Singapore than California is. There's still very much travel rules and regulations to follow from just the government overall in Singapore. So to Poya's point, it does vary by event. We work very diligently with a lot of local contacts in our events team and outside parties to make sure that we have policies that, are in place and will keep everyone safe, because we don't want anyone to get anything when they come to SaaStr, right? A cold, flu, whatever it may be. Like, we don't want anyone to walk away feeling like that they got sick or they got an illness at SaaStr. That's what we're trying to avoid. So great question. One more thing I'll mention before we dive into maybe just APAC and London a bit more, since those are our international events that are coming up sooner, is not to be overlooked. SaaStr Media is something we probably don't talk about a lot, but is something that is embedded into everything that we do. Obviously, SaaStr.com was the foundation of SaaStr. It's how this all began. It gets a lot of page views. It's gotten even more traffic in recent months. So there's a lot going on in SaaStr.com. And then our podcast, I love this Spotify Wrapped thing that I'm sure you all looked to see how much Taylor Swift you listened to this year. But they actually do it for podcasts as well. And we're one of the publishers on Spotify podcasts. And they told us we were in the top 1% of most followed podcasts of all podcasts on Spotify. So that is exciting news. It gets more than 240,000 downloads upwards a month. It's reached more than 87 countries worldwide in this last year, which is crazy amazing. And then our media team told me the stat that our 2022 sponsors collectively had more than 8 million impressions across their episodes of the SaaStr podcast. So crazy good returns on the SaaStr podcast, considering, like, I love our media because it's so evergreen, right? Like, these podcasts come out. I think one of our top podcasts in the year was from like May. I'm like, that podcast is still being listened to, and like those sponsors are still getting like listen after listen, whether they realize it or not. So I'm a big fan of the podcast. Yeah, Boy has his own podcast too.
Yeah, it's evergreen. It's a lifetime asset. And I do have my own podcast, but I got 99 problems, and podcast downloads is one of them. Whereas, as Jay-Z says, that's not the case for SaaStr. So take advantage of the podcast if you can.
Yeah, the podcast is a great one. I think we have some specs on the next one if anyone's interested. We have 3 different newsletters now. I know sometimes this might be a little confusing. It's like you might be getting some of these newsletters, but not all of them on a semi-regular basis. So we have 3 newsletters. There's a SaaStr Weekly that does go out once a week on Sunday. This was like the foundation of our newsletters. And it's usually the top content and articles of the week, sometimes some breaking news in there on Sundays. The SaaStr Daily is more of like the latest and greatest from SaaStr. It doesn't actually go out every day. It comes out 3 times a week.
Tuesday, Thursday, Saturdays.
Yeah, you got it right. So yeah, 3 times a week, almost daily. It's actually, fun fact, was daily at one point, but our subscriber said that was too much. So we went to 3 times a week, and that seems to be the right mix. The SaaStr Insider, actually, it's distributed across LinkedIn and email, so I like that one a lot. It gets published from Jason's personal like LinkedIn profile because he has like special publishing privileges on LinkedIn. So yeah, that one's cool because it goes across on LinkedIn, it's like a giant LinkedIn audience, and it hits their inbox. So it's kind of a cool one if you're trying to hit people on LinkedIn and an email. So I like the insider. Media opportunities. Oh, cameo by Playa here. Media opportunities for next year. We kind of talked about them, so I'll just give a quick blurb, but obviously, Playa, feel free to add more context. Again, I love our podcast. These episodes, if you decide to sponsor a podcast, it is 4 episodes that you'll be in per month, basically once a week. This goes out, on all of the channels where podcasts are. So we don't just do Spotify, although I personally like it. We do Spotify, iTunes, SoundCloud, XYZ, everything. Basically, we publish it out to all the podcasting channels. And again, these are continually listened to. There are some podcasts from last year, 4 years ago, still being listened to. So if this is something where like you want to put in an ad that is also evergreen of like, okay, I want to keep us top of mind forever, this is a good one to do.
The only thing I'll add is a couple of months ago, we decided basically to repurpose the top sessions from our in-person events to the podcast.
That's right.
So that's worked really, really well. But the other thing I'll add is for some of you, maybe you've acquired a new company, maybe you have a new product line, maybe you've merged, maybe you have 50 different product lines. You want to basically change your perception. The podcast, I think, is a giant megaphone where you can literally in 15 seconds tell the world what you want them to know about you. And it hits anywhere from 10,000 to 100,000 people, right? So if that is a goal for your marketing team, I genuinely cannot think of a better asset. So whether it's a product launch, a recent acquisition, a new product offering, whatever it may be, if you want them to keep you top of mind for what you want them to know you about you, I don't think there's any other asset, at least within SaaStr, that compares to it. The downside, it's very hard to track the ROI of it. So that's the plus and minus.
Yeah, podcasts are, for those who maybe don't have a podcast of their own, podcasts are notoriously hard to track because there's no system that'll tell you like the exact listens. It will only tell you downloads. This is so crazy that going into 2023, how's there still not a platform that does this? But they will only tell you downloads. They'll never tell you listens. So, that's why we have stats in here like impressions and like downloads per month and like audience size, because that's what we have available to us. We don't actually, we can guess how many listens based on the downloads and the audience size, but no one will exactly tell you because podcasts get distributed on so many channels, right? Like iTunes is not going to talk to Spotify about how many people listen. That would require some cooperation. That's the podcast. The weekly, what happened to my Google here? Sorry. Let me come back. Okay, the weekly, these ads run once a week. This is, one of our most read newsletters. It has been for the last 4 years or so. Big audience distribution. The ads, are usually, people do different things with their ads. I think this one from Snowflake is one of our still top performing ones of all time. They did like a startup challenge that did really well. I've seen people do ebooks. I've seen people do new product launches. Again, because it's once a week, you can swap them. You can do bottom of funnel content. This was one of our top newsletters for a while. Real quick on the daily, these I like because the ad units are a bit bigger. The frequency, there's a bit more of a frequency of distribution, so you kind of can hit different people across the months that these all run in, and these all run for a month. So anything that's media is a whole, month-long engagement. You do have the ability to swap the ads. Again, I've seen a lot of people have success with the daily just because of the frequency. They like to hit different people in the community based on the number of sends that it gets.
So I saw a question. I go to Insider and then I'll comment on everything as a whole. For Insider, it's through social media. The nice part is you get kind of the social component. On LinkedIn, if you have a person that comments on a post or something, you get to see it. So that social network capability is kind of cool. Overall, the only thing I just wanted to comment on this, over the last 2 years that we've doubled down on our media, not only has the distribution grown, but we've also measured to make sure the engagement grows, whether it's open rates, click-through rates. So you're actually getting significantly more value. And across the board, what we found each year since really focusing and doubling down on this in 2020 is it continues to grow each year by 20 to 40%, which in some cases is a huge win for our sponsors. The last thing I'll just comment on, when you partner with us on a media sponsorship, we're not like a TechCrunch, nothing against TechCrunch, where they partner with like 50, 60 people because they have a giant distribution. We take more of a quality approach, meaning because the audience I think that SaaStr has is a little harder to get in front of. This is maybe one of the only communities they consume the content around. We usually cap it to 1 or 2 sponsors a month per asset, meaning even though it's a monthly engagement, you're literally the only brand or one of the only limited brands we partner with, which usually what that means is you get to stand out. So anyway.
Yep. Good point. I think there was a question in the Q&A on mixing and matching as well. Poi, I don't know if you want to speak to that because you've had a lot of sponsors do that too.
Yeah, absolutely. As long as there's availability. So media is always on a first come, first serve basis, right? As long as there's availability, as long as we can make it work, as long as the why behind what you're asking makes sense, we're usually pretty flexible. So yes, if we can make it work, we'll make it work. It just requires an approval.
Yep. And I would say, the media, if you have a thought in mind of, you kind of know what you're going to launch in 23, that you want some extra oomph and eyeballs behind. Listen, there's a reason they're all priced the same on our media assets, right? It's more of just like, what is the goal? Where would, and we can help too, of like where we think it would perform the best out of our assets, right? Because we know our assets, like the back of our hands. But yeah, there's a reason they're all, hopefully, right? I'm like, oh. There's a reason they're all priced the same. And honestly, if you've been a sponsor before, you'll probably see that it's still the same right now going into 2023, right? So to Poya's point, there's a bit of deflation because our audience size has grown, but the price point is still the same as 2022 for now. And also I think last year, 2022 media sold out in like April or May early. So
usually before that. So historically, historically, at least the beginning of the year usually sells out by December, January, once people get their budgets and whatnot. And most folks that are listening to this are usually event sponsors, and event sponsors get priority. Even with that, though, the sooner you can jump in, the better. Because anyway, it's a win-win-win for everybody.
Cool. All right. Maybe we'll just touch on SaaStr APAC and then wrap after that, since it's already been 30 minutes and we were trying to keep these to 20. So, okay, we talked about this a little bit. This is our first SaaStr APAC event. It is coming up already in February, so it's less than 90 days away. February 22, 23 will be in Singapore. Again, at the beautiful Fullerton Hotel. It's right across from the Sands. If you know the Sands from all the movies and TV shows, we probably will do some VIP activations at the Sands, but the actual event will be at the Fullerton because we can take the whole thing over. So, and it has some open air elements, which we really like along the water. Our audience, so we did pull this because I know a lot of folks are asking us, like, how does the audience in APAC compare to the rest of just the SaaStr community, and maybe more specifically the events for those who have been event sponsors. The APAC attendees, we just dropped in here, the APAC attendees by company stage, and we are going to share these slides after, so you don't have to memorize this. This is real and truthful. Like I literally just pulled the attendees maybe a day or two ago to refresh it. So it's great to see, one, not only the response we've had to APAC on the attendance side, but also that the demographics really line up with the rest of the SaaStr global community. So again, a lot of CEOs, a lot of founders, a lot of folks who are in that, 1.5 to 40 million stage, some who are above 40 million, in APAC, just freaking crushing it, are coming at this conference. So it's a good mix, and we're very pleasantly happy by the response of not only like attendance and buzz around the conference, but also, the folks who are coming are really great profiles. Okay, Poya, do you want to maybe talk through the different options?
Yeah, absolutely. There is an entry level compared to this. It's a gold.
Yeah, I'm gonna go
So
there.
we'll start there and we'll move our
Start
way
there.
up. So the goal for this event, similar to SaaStr Europa, the first time I went to Europe, because most of our teams in the US and we fly in, and it's a lot of commitment. We want to make it low effort, right? And usually that's a big win for everybody that wants to get involved. So our entry level is a gold. What you get with that is a quick turnkey booth. It includes a monitor. It includes the ability for you to interact with attendees. Overall, the goal for these events is to keep it low effort. So you'll be able to exhibit both days. And the opportunity for you would be to showcase your product, get your name out there, and interact with like a very C-level audience. So the entry point is a gold. The next level up, if you want better placement, more booth, you can basically do our platinum. And for those of you that were at Europa, this is what some of the VCs look like, where you have a backdrop, you can brand it, you can promote it. I just think it becomes another great way for you to showcase your brand as well as get more leads. And if you want to go really big, there's actually two people we're talking to about this, is the diamond. So the diamond, for those of you I think that were at Europe, the best comparison I can give is like Payhawk, in that you become our top sponsor, your brand is going to be felt. Can you go to the diamond? Did it go through or no?
I'm trying to. I'm
Oh,
going the wrong way.
Okay, but the diamond, you basically have the best placement, the best booth, but you basically get to also promote or have your name and brand co-sponsored with some of the activations we're going to do anyway, such as registration, lanyards, so on and so forth. So it becomes another great way. So if there's interest in doing that one, let us know. There are two brands that are like in the later stages, but you never know. So think about it that way. Ancillary sponsorships, for whatever reason, on this event seem more hot than any other event.
Yeah.
And if you want to, for example, forego the opportunity not to do a booth, that's okay for this event. You can just do a branding opportunity. And that's anything from breakfast to lunch to happy hour to coffee, you name it. So as long as it's done on a first come, first serve basis, you can either co-sponsor with another brand, or you could do exclusive sponsorship. Up to you.
Yep. Good point. Then some of these probably look familiar to you guys from our, international events that we have, all the meals, the breakfast, lunch, happy hours, our sponsorable, there's coffee, there's the lanyards, and then the brain dates, which is our main networking for APAC. So we're going to, again, because we're bringing the SaaStr style event to APAC, we have a lot of the same style of sponsorships, just maybe it looks a little different to keep it more turnkey. And this is our first one. So, bit of a inaugural one. Okay. I think we'll probably actually end there just because it's 9:35. We want this to go for hours. But we are going to do these weekly. So I will say, I'll just end it here and I will share the deck with everyone. We are going to be doing these weekly going forward. Maybe not the one that's like, I think there's like a Thursday that's Christmas Eve-ish or so. Maybe not that one. Strict. We'll mostly do these outside of holidays, once a week. So we're excited. So again, if there's something you want to see on these, we are going to do some of these as workshops. So not always this style. So this style is more like SaaStr news events and updates. We haven't done one in a while. So as you can see, we didn't even get to all of our SaaStr news and events updates. We'll try and hit on a few more of them next week before the Christmas holiday. But yeah, and then going into New Year, we'll do some more workshop style ones on like, just events and sales and marketing. And so those will be fun too, because we'll talk about events, obviously, and SaaStr and what's new, but also try and do more like panelists, bring some of you guys in. So that'll be fun. And then, yeah, so more to come there. So we'll wrap it here so that it's not too crazy long, since now it'll be kind of 40 minutes. So thanks everyone who tuned in. Poya, anything you want to add?
No, be safe out there. The only thing I'll just comment on, I know we're doing these webinars. Don't be shy. You all have a dedicated account rep. I see Devin, that's me. Hi, Devin. I see Haley. I think that's Brian. I see Pam, that's David's. I see Kim. So thanks for supporting us. But if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to your rep. We're more than happy to jump on a quick call to go through everything, because we have most of the details now for everything going on in 2023. And then Most importantly, thanks for supporting us, right? I think it was a fantastic 2022, and none of that would ever be possible without the wonderful sponsors we have. So thank you for that.
Yeah, thanks all. It's a fun 2022. We'll do another one of these next week. We'll go over some more news and events that are happening for SaaStr next year. Maybe we'll do a fun like SaaStr wrap with some of our sponsor stats. We will send around this recording. We're streaming it, and we'll send around the slides because I know we didn't get to them all, but that way you guys have them. But thanks everyone who joined. Thanks everyone who commented in. Again, please feel free to email any of us. Your rep, myself, Koya. I'm just AI@SaaStr Inc. Anytime you want to email me. And yes, that's just my initials. It's not my fake email. It's AI@SaaStr. And we will hopefully see you all again next week. So thanks so much, guys.
I guess